Great. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Glens Falls Common Council meeting, Tuesday, October 11th, 2022. It is 7:30. We're ready for a regular session. And to begin this evening, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilwoman Palmer.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, let's open up the meeting for public comment. If anyone from the community would like to address the Common Council, please come up to the microphone and tell us your name and your address, please. Seeing no public comment, no, we'll have you under, I think, committee. I'll ask you to come up for microphone, please. So, Peter, is there anybody online that is making public comment that would like to be read? None that we know of?
No, not.
None yet? Okay.
Well, actually, there's a couple.
All right. Well, if they do, you interrupt us. Let's see. So we've asked the folks from Bike Glens Falls to come and share with us their biking survey. So would you guys come on up and say hello? Did everybody in the council get in their packet the survey results? Great, thank you.
So thank you very much for having us, Mayor, Council. We are Norba Greenberger, Ethan Gaddy. We're co-founders of Bike Glens Falls. We are a community-led bike advocacy group that's really focused on making biking comfortable and easy for day-to-day activities, for getting to school, for getting to work, for running errands. It's not about the going out there and doing a 20-mile bike ride. We really want to make biking part of everyone's day-to-day. So we were here before you about a year ago to give an introduction to the group. Since then, our group meets every 2 weeks online. We've been very busy, so I want to just give an update on the various initiatives that we've been involved with. And I think, were there 3 items that were shared with you, or just the survey? I have hard copies of the others. Okay, great. Yeah. So the first item that we want to talk about is the survey that we launched last December. So this was a public survey that we put on our social media, online. We had different flyers around town as well. And that was really open for all the public to give their feedback on what their thoughts are on biking in Glens Falls, where they like to bike to, what are the reasons why they're not biking today, and what would get them to start biking in the future. Some takeaways, I just gave a couple of the items on that handout for you. 92% of the people that responded, we have had about 150 respondents, said that they'd like to see bike infrastructure improved in the city. In terms of the reasons why people aren't biking, what was interesting to us is the top 2 are speeding vehicles and also the absence of bike lanes in the city, and that those were really the key things to get them biking. And then the other really key component is that the number 1 place that people would like to bike to is downtown. And to parks and recreation. So those kind of helped us understand what, in the general sense, people want to see in terms of bike improvements in the city. So then the second thing that we wanted to talk through, and you can jump in if I'm missing anything.
I think you're covering it
okay,
well.
good.
Norma is much more eloquent than I am, so I find the quieter I am, the better it is.
The second thing is our Take a Bike event that we held in July of last year, and thank you to the city and for all the support on the project. And for those of you that were able to join day of. For those who weren't there, this was an event that was sponsored through the Department of Health funding through Glens Falls Hospital. And it was a 1-day street takeover event on Bay, Ridge, Maple, and Washington, where we had 4 different types of bike infrastructure. So we had a bike lane that was right next to moving vehicles. We had a bike lane that was between a parked car and the sidewalk. A bike lane that had a little protected area of a couple of feet between a bike lane and moving vehicles, and sharrows. And it was an amazing event in terms of the number of people that showed up. We had a couple of hundred people coming downtown on bikes to take a bike. and trying this out, and then also answering a survey to give feedback on their comfort level on these 4 different types of bike lanes. Because everyone can say, I'd like to see bike lanes, but what does that mean? There's lots of different forms that can take. And what we heard is it's really those buffered lanes that made people feel the most comfortable. So not the sharrows, so that's when there's a marker that you share the lane with the vehicle. Not the lane that's right next to the moving cars. Really, people felt the most comfortable when there was a little bit of protection between them and the vehicles. And so then the last piece that we shared with you all is a draft priority bike network map. This has not been kind of a recent thing, it's been something we've been working on since the beginning of Bike Glens Falls. It really builds on the city's 2012 bike plan and also the AGFTC regional bike plan that I know some of you all were involved in as well. And so what we did for that is we took all that information of what were the routes that were identified in those plans, the information from the survey about where people want to bike to, information on we actually as a committee all biked these different roads and kind of sensed what is our comfort level on each of them, where could the biggest improvements be made, what's the capacity, is there a lot of cars that are parking on those roads. And there's 4 roads that are in red in the map that really came to the top in terms of priority because of where they connect to. It's connecting residents to downtown, it's an economic development driver, it's a way to connect to the Warren County Bike Trail, to connect to school and different opportunities in the region. And we want to just highlight 2 of those roads as kind of what we're thinking as our next steps as an organization, which are Bay and Ridge. So as a city, there's every 10 or so years, there's going to be a project to repave a road. That happened in Glens Street last year, Warren Street this year. Bay and Ridge, it's been several years since those have been repaved. And thinking ahead to the future repaving of those roads, it's really an opportunity to evaluate if a bike lane could be accommodated in either of those 2 roads. And we think as an organization that we can really support the city in starting to move, start thinking about that potential opportunity, whether it's through, public engagement, communicating with business owners on the roads, looking at them, looking at what the parking is, and really just starting to kind of get that conversation going. But we wanted to talk with you all about that potential kind of focus as a group and get some feedback on whether it is really kind of a viable opportunity to continue exploring.
Right, and just to point out the fact that Bay and Ridge are both sort of towards their repaving cycle means that with very minimal investment and effort from the city, we'll be able to take advantage of the fact that, hey, these transportation dollars are going into these routes. We are going to have engineers there. It's like there's going to be all this apparatus in place anyways. So with a very little amount of effort, the city will have a very real opportunity to put bike infrastructure there. As opposed to saying, hey, let's take a look at Glen Street. It was just repaved. There's no point in doing that right now. It's not the best use of limited resources.
Questions?
Yeah, I do have a question. So you're talking about Bay and Ridge Street in the paving cycle. Isn't there anything that we can do now, because is some of that just basic lightage that needs to be put on those streets?
Yeah, definitely. You could move forward with just repainting and doing different lines as well, but thinking ahead, it also could be incorporated into one of those projects. But yes,
they're
you
also
could move
kind
forward.
of rough, so it's like there's potholes and then there's expansion things, and, so it would be ideal at the time that you're fixing everything for the surfacing project to get that to be more pedestrian and bicycle friendly.
So if you were gonna invest in bike lane, maybe you wouldn't do those 2 roads because you're getting really ready to pave them. But there might be another road that could.
Well, it's actually at the point that you'd be doing the resurfacing is a great time to look at when you would.
Absolutely. I just meant it would be of any 2 roads you may not want to at all.
Right, yeah, any
It would be
near-term
those
stuff,
2
yeah.
because you're about to repave them.
Exactly.
Because any work you did might be lost
Yeah,
when you repave them.
yeah.
Okay.
No, so there's definitely opportunities for like low-cost interventions like that. I mean, A lot of the recently repaved streets haven't been striped yet. And then, you know, to your point though about what can we do now, very much like we did for the demonstration project downtown, you know, as you start to have conversations with people that live in that neighborhood and use those transportation facilities, say, hey, maybe we can do a pilot project. Like let's do, you know, a couple blocks striped this way, and maybe we can talk to our partners at Glens Hospital, see if they have funding for that. That might be a good way to have the conversation in a way that's not too super committed before actually going forward and doing a full road reconstruction.
So I have a question. On your map here, you highlighted Dix Avenue as a street. We just spent significant dollars from soup to nuts on that street. What are you looking additionally to do there on Dix?
So basically, that map identifies the routes that are priority in terms of like connecting community destinations. So schools, grocery stores, commercial centers, all, you know, parks and whatnot. It's not necessarily suggesting that there are things that need to be done right now or the specific physical recommendations for Dix. Recognizing the fact that it was just repaved, what we're saying is we think it would be more opportune for the city to focus on Bay and Ridge because the amount of money that's already in engineering that's already gone into Dix is sort of like foregone conclusion.
Right, but
there's other areas that the city could focus on and get more bang for their buck.
But if we're just lacking a bike lane on Dix Avenue, I mean, we've just spent a lot of money on Dix to make it more pedestrian friendly, more easier access, things like that. If all we need to do is put a bike lane on there, then, you know, that's low hanging fruit. That really
Could be more. I mean, fact is that what you just did is put parking spaces all down Dix Avenue. So you might be removing all those parking lanes, and it might be more expensive to do Dix than some other road. You just don't know. I mean, that's where I would, it would be great if you, so your suggestion is, you're thinking that two roads that the city could explore would be Bay and Ridge because you know we're repaving. So I would like to say, well, if let's just say that we could do Bay and Ridge and that we wanted to do Bay and Ridge. I'd like to know what bike lane you would suggest of the four that you tried to make Bay and Ridge, and how many parking spaces that would take out that are currently there. Would you use both sides of the road? Would you suggest sharrows, or so what type? You probably couldn't tell us the cost, but again, how many spots you could easily look at those and say, right now, if we ran one down Bay Road along this route, that these spaces would be lost. You could help us with that. We could also, on our side, look at what the cost would be to paint those when we redo it, right? And it probably wouldn't be that much more than we're already paying, that would be in the budget to paint them. It would just be changed. So there's a way in which we could work together to see what that would cost would be, where they would start, where they would end, and what kind of lane would be suffice. Are we talking about a lane on both sides? Are you talking about a lane on one side of the street that would be used by bikes going either way? Are you talking about losing 150 parking spaces or 300 parking spaces, right?
Yeah, those are definitely all the questions that we'd have to start answering. I mean,
So-
because the whole purpose is like, hey, we need to be making informed decisions. So we need to get the information to you in order to make that decision easy.
Yeah, and it certainly would help if we're thinking of, you're right, it's on somewhere on the list. I would like to say that we are, that our paving and our sidewalk lists are looking 4 or 5 years down the road, and they aren't very reactionary, but what we're learning is that they are much more reactionary than that. But here's a good way to think about it, right? I mean, now would be the time, right? So could we ask you to look at that, pick one of those roads and tell us what kind of lane you'd suggest, and again, both sides or one side, and what would that leave for the road? If you took right now, you could probably take 5 or 6 samples of the entire width of Bay Street and say that it runs from 30 to 35 feet, right? What those things would look like.
Is the parking study just solely for downtown, or would it connect into Bay and Ridge a little?
No, it's just right now,
Strictly down.
but it doesn't mean we couldn't add to it. The first focus on that is the two focuses of the current study being done was downtown parking spaces and the utilization, how often they're being used and that stuff, and then potential spots for the need for, and then potential locations for a parking garage. But it doesn't mean we couldn't add to it, and it'd be a great idea to do this, right? But I think it's, if you could do it at the same time and you're looking at other parking, I mean, I'd like to think that the loss of a few dozen spots of all of Glen Street in exchange for a bike path that led all the way down Bay into our heart of downtown, it'd be
And out to the college.
and out to the college, sure, right? I mean, just seems as though it's a reasonable thing to ask, right? We're not talking about 75 streets,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's a way to make it more usable throughout the city. So,
Yeah.
could you think of that for us? Could you think about it?
Yeah.
Again, I think the one that I would be most comfortable getting information from is what kind of lane, and is one side enough? Right? Because then we'd at least have something to start with. Then we can go back to our engineer and say, if we were to suggest this to them, is that when they start to look at this, what would those costs be? And then let the public weigh in on that.
Yeah.
Does the public believe that it is? I did find it interesting, I was a little taken back. So 75% of the people, the type of cyclists they are, 73% of total surveyed were enthused as long as there were some bike improvements and had a strong and willing to ride on all roadways. So they're bikers whether we add biking lanes or not, but they would like to see some improvements. And only a quarter of them said that they need bike lanes. So that's not oh my God, yes, we're not riding if you don't give them to us. But yes, we'd really like it if it was safer.
Yeah.
I also thought it was different that of the ones who said they would like the protected lane were almost as worried about people opening their cars as they were by getting hit by a car.
Right.
So, but I'll let you guys think of for those, let's say again, Ben, or you said Bay and Ridge, if you could make some suggestions as to what you'd consider for those, and then would you, something again that I wouldn't know, but would you suggest in parts of Glen it being this kind of way because you know it's more feasible?
Yeah.
But for the far parts of Bay that there's clearly more room on the road.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
don't know if that is
Yeah,
is
there has to be a lot of
acceptable in the
flexibility.
biking world, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all about flexibility, right?
Cool.
I found it interesting, and goes to show you my spatial recognition is far from adequate, but when you did the biking demonstration on Take a Bite Maple Street, I was shocked that you had 2 driving lanes plus 2 parking lanes and a bike lane. I did not even think that was possible, so I was pleasantly surprised that we could accommodate all that traffic plus pedestrians on that street. I just thought that was
And that was the protected bike lane too.
right.
So
It was
even wider.
it was amazing that we had that much space on
There's
that street.
there's a few roads in the city that are really wide and could really easily be, adapted
Right.
that way.
Right.
And not at a huge cost
Yeah.
to either one.
Yeah, they're
You don't have to
already-
either
right.
or,
Yeah.
right? It's,
And that's why I appreciated the demonstration project, because it really made us, the public and its leadership see what is actually possible. And not all one thing is gonna fit in all these locations, but if we have a hybrid models in the area that still makes it somewhat safe for our are more safe for cyclists, that's great, you know, that we can connect our recreation, our business, our downtowns to, you know, with people in our community, so, awesome. So
Thank you.
Great.
I think as we plan, go ahead, I just,
No, go ahead.
this, the last thing is that we could also, we have money dedicated every year to remarking roads. So if one of those roads that is one of these, even if we're not repaving it, and we can do it within reasonable thing, and we're not making a huge sacrifice, well, I mean, we'd be crazy not to, right? We do have a need that, unfortunately, all I discover all the times is the needs that we haven't gotten to yet, right? And it's a little, it can be discouraging, right? Because like when I'm speaking to Tony about starting to enforce the parking again, he's like, Mayor, we can, but there are so many, we need to realign our parking spaces in some of these areas. And that alone is like, you know, oh, we didn't plan on that. It's not in this year's budget. So it's probably one of the things that's gonna be on your list for ARPA funding. So I think that having the information about a couple proposed streets really helps us to make better informed and plan for that, so.
Great.
Yeah, and we could probably just write up an approach to how we can do it, give it to you all send it via email, and see if you just sign off on it, and then keep you updated as we go forward. And then the other thing, just to quickly add, was we're thinking about screening a movie called The Streets Project in Glens Falls, trying to partner with the local theater. It's an interesting video that PBS just released on sort of like, hey, how our traffic and transportation systems in our cities are impacting public health and quality of life. So we'd like to have that this winter, another good way to get people sort of engaged with the idea of active transportation, walking and biking. And then hopefully another public project this spring, very much like the Take a Bike. Another public way to get people outdoors on their bikes and just having the conversation about bike infrastructure in the city.
And we have continued the relationship with Glens Falls Hospital, and we're also working on a inventory of the different bike racks throughout the city, so the infrastructure that's there today, so that's ongoing.
Yeah,
Are you both residents of the city?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good, thank you.
I was gonna say the same thing you did about getting us the streets we could just maybe paint lines on, but I'd also just like to say, you know, that it's easy to identify something that you're not happy about and complain. It's not so easy to dedicate hours of your time and your expertise, so I think we all really appreciate it. And I feel like this is one of the things that's so great about Glens Falls, is residents who care so much. So thank you very much for all of the hours you put into this.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Seeing no one else from the community, committee reports, Councilman Clark.
Our Economic Community Development Committee met to talk about transition plans for our sidewalks on October 4th. I want to thank Tom Gerard and Jeremy Schneidel and Pat Dowd, also Councilman Lapham for attending the meeting, as well as Mr. Unkoff was there as well. It was a good first meeting. I'm almost finished with tweaking the template that we had, and we'll be sharing it with the rest of the committee. Hopefully maybe touch base after one of our budget meetings. So we've got some steam on this, so I don't want to lose the momentum. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Donovan.
Well, on sustainability, I think we're waiting for Emmett Smith and Northern Power Light to get back to us because there's some mix-up on what meters needed to be in this report and what didn't. So I think maybe the water and sewer wasn't taken into consideration, which is probably 40% of the power that the city uses itself. So we're going to get these estimates in, and then again, working with, on solar with the state. We're just waiting for a few more pieces to come in, and then when they do, then hopefully we can move on this. Because I think it's been hanging around for a while. Thanks for everything.
When you set your next meeting, Councilman, would you invite Jeremy Schneidel? Jeremy and I had, we've been looking at, I've been using Jeremy's help to whittle down all the projects I told you about, that we collected all the needs from every department. And as we were talking, I think it was Jeff Flagg who had added solar project on one of his lists. And so I said to Jeremy, yeah, that the Sustainability Committee's looking at it. And he said, do they know that the landfill is not completely closed? It's not completely done. There's a whole process of many years that it takes for the DEC to do that, and it's not completed, and there may be, he said he didn't think that any of the information that he had for you would stop you from working on it, but it would add information of some hoops you might have to jump through with a different part of the state to make sure you're doing it. So I said, you know, I failed, so please invite him. He won't be able to come to all your meetings, but you want him to come to a few, share with him the projects you're looking at, and let him share with you any information he has that might help you to either do what you're doing or understand more of a long-term perspective. Remember, he worked for Steve Gersler. He would know about that. And he has to file reports even to this day on the, when I look at the dump, it's done. Grass is growing, it's done, right? And but it's not completely done in the monitoring and the official closing from the state's point of view. So he's got some information for you. You want to?
I just think hydro is an easier way of going. That's all.
Yeah, probably you're right, but you want that background information from him to make sure that there's not some additional. He talked about an easement. There's something that for us to do that, we have to get a letter from the state saying they're all done with their closing. So I just, please, I
Touch base.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, invite him. And he won't come to all of them. He cringed a little bit when I said I want to invite him to this committee meeting because I have him working an awful lot. And so I said, no, we won't, but have him come. You share every once in a while the projects you're working on. He can share with you any information you might need to know to complete your work. All right, thank you. Councilman Landry, committee reports.
Labor and Personnel is going to meet tomorrow evening at 5:30 with the Fire Department Union as we move forward to hopefully a successful contract that benefits both parties.
Thank you. Councilwoman Palmer.
The Recreation Committee hasn't met, but Amy Collins did ask us to come to the Recreation Commission meeting to give them an update. So if any of the other Recreation Committee members would like to come to that meeting, it's 10:26 at 4 p.m. And then after that, we need to meet to start planning our winter events, believe it or not, because it will be snowing before we know it. And in terms of building and codes, we've been waiting to kind of give people time to settle in, but I would like, before too long, to schedule another meeting because we now have some new staff so that everybody can meet them and kind of get an update about how things are going. So I'll be in touch with you about that. That's it.
Thank you. Let's see, committee reports, Councilman Lapp.
The tech committee met on the 5th, so last Wednesday, and a couple of issues came up. We met with Store Tech, who's our IT provider. The committee recommended, after kind of negotiating through a police server upgrade, a subsequent proposal that Store Tech gave us. So that'll be coming, I think, next. Or is it in this week?
It's in this.
So well, we recommend it. Long story short.
Well, you also, I want to give you credit, you also saved us over $10,000 by negotiating with them, right? So,
I think they
We got a
need to
different,
bring them
we got a different proposal from them, which was, we were just kind of, just trying to make sure everything was right size for our needs. We also, discussed, Avazar, which was, and I'm sorry, I meant to follow this up right after the meeting, but I'm just gonna explain it right now. This is one of those audits that can be done about fees that we haven't collected. And then they would be taking a cut off of what they discovered, and the city would get 55% of it, they would get 45% of it in this proposal. I will forward that along. We talked about it in the committee and thought it sounded like a good idea, but I'd like to pass it along to the mayor and to the council, and then, maybe in a future meeting, have that as a resolution to authorize the mayor to look further into it. It sounded like it was pretty good. And
fees would be any kind of fee?
yeah, it could be like uncollected franchise cable, franchise fees, could be like uncollected hotel tax or short-term rentals. If there's any sort of thing that we might have as, something that they could, they would let us know what scope beforehand, but.
Could be anything?
Yeah.
Okay.
But like, they would be within the scope, not like just, oh, we're going to go and ransack the house and
Okay.
get all the nickels and dimes out of the seat cushions.
And then if I take, there's no investment on the city's
Nope.
part to do that.
Nope.
Except for the loss of percentage of the fee.
Right, of the monies that we're not collecting currently.
Great.
And I think that's, there was an issue with the Munis system for a few days that we heard from staff, yeah. And so StoreTech was suggesting different ways of getting that resolved. There was a problem between Munis support and StoreTech support of kind of passing the buck is what it kind of sounded like, but I haven't heard a subsequent follow-up, so I need to kind of follow up on it. That's about it.
Great, thank you. Councilwoman Good, committee reports.
Yes, special projects. Our next meeting will be coming up this Tuesday, October 18th at 2 o'clock in the mayor's conference room, and we will be reporting after that.
Thank you very much. And so, let's move to a voice vote. If everybody's got the material and has had a chance to look at it, Resolution 1 is a resolution approving the minutes of the September 27, 2022 meeting of the Glens Falls County Council. And Resolution 2 is to accept the city clerk's September office and monthly PDB reports as attached. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Under roll call vote, are there any roll call items the council would like to pull for discussion? Hearing none. Resolution 3 is a resolution to authorize the controller to increase the revenue code A00999-1589, other public safety income, by $9,240, and to increase the budget expense code A23120-1000, police department personal services, by $9,240. 4 is a resolution to authorize the controller to increase revenue code A00999-2630, restitution, by $250, and increase the budget expense code A23126-4479, seized assets state, by $250. 5 is a resolution to approve the City of Glens Falls Community Development Manual payments in the amount of $4,125.55. 6 is a resolution to authorize the controller to increase the revenue line A0099999-4 4089 government aid ARPA money by $14,100. Increase the budget expense line A 34012-2300 motor vehicle equipment by $14,100 to buy out the 2019 Hyundai electric vehicle lease, a car used by building and codes in the course of their duties. 7 is a resolution to authorize the controller to increase revenue line A 00999-4089 government aid ARPA money by $37,761.47 and increase budget expense line A 11685-2030 computer equipment by $37,761.45 with a positive recommendation by the Technology Committee to purchase a replacement file server, 2 PC workstations, and data backup storage devices for the police department. 8 is a resolution to authorize the controller to increase sewer fund budget line G 78130-4415 electricity by $75,000 and G 78130-4416 gas by $35,000 and G 78130-4479.4 disposal fees by $65,000 and the general water fund F78320-4415 electricity by $10,000 with an offset to respective fund balance due to the projected cost of overruns caused by inflation. 9 is a resolution to authorize the controller to decrease general fund expense line A 67020-1000 by $4,000 and to increase general fund expense line A 67020-4479 other contracted services by $4,000 to pay for the cleaning and closing of the Eastfield pool and other services provided by Pools Unlimited. 10 is a resolution to approve the Ames Goldsmith Pipeline project, contingent upon all necessary permits from all involved entities that are required, and executed an agreement is in place to the satisfaction of the city attorney. 11 is a resolution to approve the encroachment permit for Ames Goldsmith Corporation, 21 Roger Street, Glens Falls, to trench in Gear Street and Shermantown Road in order to install a 4-inch wastewater pipeline from Ames Goldsmith facility to their tanks at the wastewater treatment plant from October 12, 2022 through December 31st, 2022, with the standard requirements that the work will be completed in accordance with the approved design drawings. 12 is a resolution to approve the encroachment permit for Minky Mink, 203 Glen Street, Glens Falls, to place a table on the sidewalk in front of their business on November 13, 2022 to display jewelry in compliance with ADA regulations for public access on the sidewalk. 13 is a resolution to approve encroachment permit for Charles Wood Theater, Inc., owner tax map number 302.20-30-15, commonly known as 217 Glen Street, Glens Falls, to place a man lift next to the building to allow the painting of an art mural on the side of the building from October 20th, 2022 through November 5th, 2022, with the understanding that the areas be cordoned off and will allow pedestrian access on the sidewalk according to ADA regulations. 14 is a resolution to approve encroachment permit for National Grid, 1125 Broadway, Albany, as approved by Mayor Collins on October 4th, and subject to retroactive common council approval to install one 4-inch pipe at 60 feet encased to the back of 170 Glen Street from National Grid manhole in the road, October 12, 2022 through November 30, 2022, with the city's standard requirements, with the understanding that the additional city stipulations included within will be adhered to as well as attached. 15, resolution to approve the encroachment permit for Noah Elinsky, of Northeastern Fine Jewelers, 176 Glens Street, to place 4 tables with chairs on the sidewalk in front of the business on October 2nd, 2022, with the understanding that a 5-foot pathway for pedestrian access be established, while also maintaining appropriate clearance around the city fire hydrant as located. 16, resolution to accept the year-end December 31st, 2021 City of Glens Falls Independent Auditor's Report, financial statements and information. 17 is a resolution to approve the warrant. Do we have a motion for a roll call vote?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Councilman Al Clark,
Yes.
Councilman Donahue,
Yes.
Councilman Landry,
Yes.
Councilwoman Palmer,
Yes.
Councilman Ledlow,
Yes.
and Councilwoman Berger.
Yes.
Thank you. New business, Mr. Clark.
I have none.
Oh, sorry, old business, Mr. Clark.
I have none.
None, there you go. Old business, Councilman Donahue.
I was sitting around with the water and sewer department. I guess they're got cell phone equipment at 2 of our
Tower.
towers.
Yes, sir.
So I guess that's 40 grand for the bottom line every year, which is nice to hear. So you pick up these little tidbits once in a while.
Absolutely. Yes, it is great. And we were just, the reason that was kind of held up a little bit, we wanted to make sure they're putting those towers back on our brand new work that we've done on our towers is within the, wouldn't void the warranty on the work done. So it is all cleared now, and $40,000 to our bottom line is helped. Great, thank you. Old business, Councilman Lamb?
Just one question. In the warrant tonight, I see where we again made a payment to LaBella. How much longer do we expect that to continue?
Well, it depends, we do work with LaBella for anybody. Are you talking about building and codes?
Yes.
So probably over the next 6 months, although it'll wean itself soon. So what we contracted with LaBella is an hourly rate. There's a couple different employees that are working with us. So first thing LaBella did, and it's done with, is the assessment of the entire department. Now they're working specifically to help us while Justin, our new CEO, right, code enforcement officer, and the department head, is he will, over the next 6 months, be taking his training online. They have one person that's helping us to make sure that we don't fall behind on our current building permits and inspections that are due. And another is to help train him to get him ready and up to speed. So as he becomes more trained, they'll back out the hours, and we're meeting with them every 2 weeks. And also Councilwoman Palmer's group will also, the committee will begin to work with them too. So as long as we see that goes, they'll back out more and more until they're completely done. And we just, I think you're aware, so we've posted the position for a building inspector, and we haven't gotten resumes in yet for that. We've hired a contractual J.D. Ellingsworth, who's a retired firefighter who has experience in code enforcement. We'll use him to do that, so we're not using LaBella for any of that. And so we're in a good spot, but the hope is that it would be less and less every month. And if we,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Any other, any other old business, Councilman Murray?
No.
Old business, Councilwoman Palmer?
Just that we are in open pickup time now. It started October 11th, which is today, and it ends November 18th or the first snowfall. And you know, they have a schedule up on their website. They go to Ward 3 on Tuesday, Ward 2 on Wednesday, Wards 4 and 5 on Thursday, and Ward 1 on Friday. So just want to remind people of that. And also, I was able to go to the opening night of the Glens Falls Symphony this last weekend at the high school. And I think I said this last year too, but it's pretty amazing that we are the smallest city in the country to have a professional symphony. So we're so lucky with the arts programs that we have in Glens Falls. You can just walk to the high school and for not too much of a cost, see a cool program. So just want to put that out there. That's it.
So true.
Thank you. Yeah. Old business, Councilman Webb.
So just a couple of things. The Climate Smart Communities Task Force meeting was postponed last week because I had another obligation. And it'll be tomorrow at 7 p.m. on the second floor of City Hall. Also, the East End kind of sidewalk survey that was done last month. John Huggins from the hospital is going to present that next council meeting in 2 weeks to the council with what findings came from that.
Thank you. Old business, Councilwoman Gooden.
No more business.
No. New business, Councilman Clark.
I have none.
New business, Councilman Dunn.
I get a little shock here when we go from 51,000 to get rid of solids and disposals to 60,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little shock, I thought,
Yeah.
you know? In the summer it was like 51 and 52, and now it's 60,000.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. It's
They go
definitely,
significantly.
inflation has definitely got us. No doubt.
I should agree.
Yeah. Councilman Landon. New business.
I'd like to acknowledge the fire department, especially the D crew, for their professional response to a rare incident here in the city on October 6th. An individual was caught in a piece of highway equipment on Warren Street and could not be removed. It was in a very life-threatening situation. Our firemen immediately sized up the situation, knew that a trauma surgeon was needed to extradite the victim, and coordinated the response of surgeons from the Glens Falls Hospital and the Albany Medical Center, who came to the site, assisted in the removal of the victim in his timely helicopter flight to Albany Medical Center. This was a rare event for our firefighters. Their composure, knowledge, and action saved the individual. I'd like to commend the D crew of the fire department for a job well done. Hockey's back. I see that the training camp opened yesterday for the Adirondack Thunder. Please get out and support the team, and if you can, buy a season ticket and support the team in the downtown as well. Reminder, October is Fire Prevention Month. We ask all city residents to check their smoke and CO2 detectors as we enter the upcoming heating season. And next Monday, hydrant flushing will start around the city. You may get some discoloration in your water. It's still safe, and it'll subside over time. Thank you.
Thank you. New business, sorry, Councilwoman Palmer.
I have none.
Councilman White.
So there's from the hospital, John Huggins told me there's a nationwide Safer Streets webinar in November. I forwarded it along to everybody, but if anybody's interested in that, the hospital will pick up the cost of the webinar. It's over 3 days in November. I'll resend it because I probably sent out like 100 things a week to everybody. So I think I might be in the spam folder. I'll just put on it not spam. So hopefully it'll go through. But John, to get the early bird pricing, wanted to get a head count in the next couple of days.
Could you ask him if they record it and could share
Definitely.
that?
Yeah, I'll see
So-
what, there's I can also take notes and kind of give a briefing to everybody who's not able to attend.
It just would be interesting.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gooden. New business.
Not at this time.
None? Okay. Under the new business, it's kind of new and old. I wanted to remind everybody it is budget season, so you should have, please respond to Councilman Lapham and let him know what, I hope everybody was able to attend. I think he told me pretty much everybody with some minor exceptions could make it to the meetings. Councilman Clark is going to be meeting with Chip and myself, talking about that, preparing you for all that. I wanted to remind you, or get your thinking about, if I could, Chief Schrammel sent you guys an email with 3 options for a new ambulance. And the three options range from about $240,000 for an old ambulance where you take and put a new chassis, a new box on it for $240,000, or a brand new ambulance for about $380,000.
With all the bells and whistles.
With all the bells and whistles, and we have a history. If you will see in the budget, you are going to see the most thorough. It is a goal for each of our department heads to start to use his formatting when talking about their budget. I haven't got to it this year, but I promise you I'm going to, because it's an amazing thing. But it shows you how many miles we get out of our vehicles. Chief Schrammel's vehicles are averaging about 20 years old and hundreds of thousands of miles. It's impressive, and the use of the resources. The history has been to use, to put that money out to bond over a 20-year period or 30-year period. I'm under the feeling, it would be my thoughts to buy the new vehicle, to not, to do that, and to use this, to ask Suzanne, the controller, to put that out to bond. I would like to know what your thoughts are in general, because we want to move on this sooner than later. We will have plenty of time to review it, but if you agree that I could have Suzanne start to look at that and Jamie to move forward on those things. We don't want to, there is the vehicle that's available. If he doesn't call and tell him he's interested, he might lose it. He mentioned that in his email to you. What are your thoughts? We could try to use ARPA money for this. I'm about to present to you when we talk about our budget that. I think there's plenty of other things to spend ARPA money on, and it's not my recommendation, but, and I also think that, again, I want you to speak up. What do you think? Do we try to save ourselves $100,000 and buy a used vehicle?
No.
Well, the newer vehicle is a four-wheel drive vehicle. It's much more adapt to handle our city streets than the other two. I think other two options. I think that we should look at where we are as far as debt service goes, and whether or not, if anything's coming off the books. If stuff is coming off the books on debt service, I would say take that what's coming off the books and then reinvest it in this truck. If that's the case, if nothing's coming off, we should look at other ways to fund this. But I think it's important to know where we are as far as where we stand with debt. And like I said, if we are taking some debt off our books, let's take that money and utilize it again for something valuable that's going to last us for obviously a very long period of time, the way those guys handle the vehicles. But I would be of the mindset that we go with the demonstration model. I think it will serve our needs and serve the
Do we have the proposal somewhere so that we can look at the three?
Yeah.
Because I'm very uncomfortable discussing it without looking at what the.
Sure. Well, we sent you the email. Do you mean more than that? With the three options, or you want to?
I don't recall seeing the email.
Oh, okay. All right. So then I'll have it resent, and we'll talk about it in the upcoming meeting. Okay. I thought you had all gotten it, and I apologize if you had.
I've been out of office for 5 days, so I might have missed it.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. No, that's good. We'll definitely get you he's got three options for you to examine, to consider. And again, I mentioned the opposite ends of that. That's great. So we'll hold off until we can look at it. And to answer your question, yes, Councilman Clark, I think in 2025, a fairly large amount of debt comes off the books, but not this year. So I'll let you look at that. The other thing I wanted to remind everybody, October 21st, Friday night, is the opening ceremony, Special Olympics here, and Saturday the 22nd is the state games, the competitions all throughout the Glens Falls region, 7 Sports, we could use your help, or they could use your help, I'm sorry. Well, let's see, that was it, and I wanted to call up Jeff, to come on up, Jeff, if you get a chance. So Jeff wanted to talk to you about where we are, give you an update on the DRI, and the progress being made.
Yes, thank you for finding me in the crowd there, Mayor. Just a sidebar unrelated to what I was going to talk about. I will just mention that with respect to any vehicles that you may buy, the city may buy in the next X number of years, be aware that the climate law, the CLCPA, is probably going to be looking at vehicle conversions first, right? Because currently it's the easiest, the path of least resistance to decarbonization. So when you look at a vehicle that you say, well, it's going to last for a long time, the fact that the vehicle may last a long time doesn't mean the city's necessarily going to be able to use it for a long time. So just something to keep in mind, and I say that across the board without respect to any particular project.
The electricity used to run the inside of the ambulance makes electric vehicles a non-starter, can't work, doesn't.
Currently, without, excuse the pun.
Sure.
Currently.
Well, I mean, if you have the technology, we'll figure out how to use it.
Well, yeah, and I simply suggest that when you're talking about 20 years, you're probably talking way inside the window of sustainable options. Anyway, and that was not my purpose. I just want to sort of give everyone a quick update on the DRI, on the heels of a pair of public presentations I know many of you are aware of because you were there, that the city held at the end of last month on the progress of the downtown revitalization initiative. 2 major projects were actually brought before the planning board last week. 3 really if you count, but actually working on 2. But Spring City Development was granted site plan approval for both Phase 1, which is the rehabilitation of the 3 buildings at 45 and 49 South and 36 Elm, and Phase 2, which is the new building, the new workforce housing development that's on the current pavilion lot that the city owns. Pending forthcoming architectural review and issuance of a building permit, it's likely that Spring City is looking to begin work on Phase 1 as early as next month. So if that's even a little bit optimistic, I would say before the end of the year, they should be working on the rehabilitation. Obviously, these are indoor projects largely, so it won't affect them to be working over the winter. Phase 2 was also approved for site plan review, and Spring City is now preparing an application for to HCR, Homes and Community Renewal, for state funding support. Spring City has indicated that they will be seeking some tax relief from the city, primarily in the form of a pilot. I mention that because due to the length and structure of the pilot they're seeking, the approval process is required actually to go through before the city council rather than through the IDA, which typically provides pilots for these kinds of projects. I will provide some more details at the next council meeting when I actually have a specific proposal to present to you. We're fortunate that we have, in some ways, sort of a recent point of reference for us in that the city received there was a similar project that went through a similar process in 2019, Broad Street Commons, which was done by Reading Development. I know many of the council members were not involved then, so I'll give you some details about that when we meet again in 2 weeks. Meanwhile, the market center plans were also submitted to the planning board for sketch plan review. A sketch plan review is really technically not an official submittal. It's simply a chance to give the planning board and the public sort of first look at the structure that this city's looking to build. Got some very good comments from the planning board members. There was also some feedback from the public in the wake of the 2 meetings that we had with them the previous week. So we're looking actually to make a formal submission to the planning board at the planning board meeting next month. And then subsequent to that, later last week, the mayor and I and Pat Dell, the community development director, and a few others met with representatives from Empire State Development and the Department of State just to go over where we were with our planning process. Of course, this happened on the heels of the visit by the Secretary of State a couple of weeks ago. All of whom are sort of fully aligned and fully supportive of the project that we're pursuing and the avenue that we're taking to pursue it.
Jeff, question.
Yes, sir.
In regards to the pilot, do we have a proposal from spring, is what they're looking for?
We have a draft of a proposal for them. We're actually going over it to look at it right now. So we're actually going to come up with I guess we'll call it a counter proposal, but essentially this will be somewhere in the vicinity of what we looked at previously, I should say, with Broad Street Commons. Probably something under about 30 years, which is typical for these projects. And we'll have some specifics for you then that you can take a look at and peruse. Their application is actually due the first week of December, so we have a little bit of time,
That's it.
but not much.
So their application with the state is due the first.
I believe it's I think it's December 6th. I want to say it's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. I want to say, I believe it's Tuesday. I think it's the day of the planning board meeting, which is why we had to get this done now.
Okay, thanks.
And the pilots on the city-owned lot will collect zero taxes.
Correct. And we're fortunate that we have, as I said, that reference point, because it's a similar size of structure. And just as a point of reference there, one of the reasons that this goes before the city council rather than for the IDA, one is the length, right? Typically the IDA by statute provides, or at least rules, it can only go out to 15 years. This is longer than that. Also, the IDA, as the Industrial Development Authority, right, is usually looking at businesses, right? Industrial projects, how many jobs are being created. This project is actually being done, it's set up through the Housing Development Fund Corporation. And because of that, as a housing project, this is a specific model that HCR creates for affordable housing construction rehabilitation projects. And even if the IDA decided they could go through it, it'd have to go through the city council anyway, so this will allocate the need for that. Great, thank you.
The good basis of that is, I'm sorry, Jeff, just that we have one just like it. So the Regan development is a great way to start with a base of I forgot what it is, but a certain amount of tax right up front, and then a slow increase of 2% a year through it. So it's really, because of the size of the project's almost identical, we can just use the same model. But Jeff will have the details for you that coming soon.
And Karen made a good point. We're getting something where we got nothing before, so plus we're getting some housing downtown that is needed. So
absolutely. With that, does anybody have public comments or any other comments?
I actually did get the email, I just totally spaced out on it.
You don't have to be like
That's good. That's good. So just take a look at it, sheet, and that's really all I wanted you to do.
did it show up in your spam or?
It was like this right there, it's just all like mixed up with all the stuff I've been spamming everybody else with.
Very good. Yes, go
I think
ahead.
the county wants to put some money towards supporting EMS services. And so is this something we could use for that?
We are actually, Chief Schrammel is meeting with Councilwoman Bramer and Councilman, Supervisor, excuse me, Supervisor Bramer and Supervisor Peter McDevitt tomorrow, and I'm asking them to come and see me afterwards too. Last week we met with Supervisor Diamond, who had been making a plea on behalf of the police department for some county funding there. I'm asking those supervisors to come to us. I'm hoping to use our budget experience to provide what I think are unmet needs that we have, and so that we could give them all the same information instead of having them advocate and then ask questions. So, so yes, it certainly could be used for that, and that would change the amount. If we got some money, we would bond less, obviously, if we needed less. But absolutely, and we should ask. So we're asking for equipment for the police in part of, again, I apologize, the supervisors didn't come to me first. They're approaching our department heads, and I'm asking them to all come to me because I'd like to share with them what our budget limitations are, so that they could have it all. And So, but until I've prepared that document, it's not fair to ask them to come to me. So anyway, that's what we'll work on as we do this budgetary process. And so yes, Councilwoman Bramer and McDevitt, Councilman McDevitt are looking at trying to get us money for that, for different needs, the fire department needs and EMT needs, because they're in a committee that are looking at funding the county, and they're saying, well, if you're gonna give some of this money to the county's EMS, why not for the city as well? And the same, Councilman Diamond's doing the exact same thing when it comes to police and his committee. And so I'm thinking, why not come up with a list of all our different needs that they could then take into their committees and think about that. That's our goal. Okay? And Peter, any public comment? Great. If not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.